Now let's get into AI. It seems AI generated content seems inevitable at this point. What's your take on ChatGPT and how non-SEOs are potentially aiming to use it for SEO purposes, such as, let's say, title tags, writing title tags?
Oh, yeah, yeah, AI. What to do with UA? I think, I mean, it's so useful. And I found myself being unbelievably polite. Like it like, hello, could you possibly like, oh, thank you so much. Um, so, I mean, it is super useful. I have very much used it before. Actually, I knit this jumper. I love knitting. And I asked it to create a knitting pattern for me, just like a simple raglan construction. And I was reading it and I was like, I don't think that makes any sense. And there's somebody on TikTok who's a crocheter, so quite similar to knitting. And they've been making the patterns that they've asked ChatGPT for. And she called one of the videos, "Today I make a cursed Pikachu." And it just looks terrible. So I think that's kind of an example where it isn't quite there. But I mean, I've used it before. I think uh, for me, I find it most useful as kind of a starting point. Like, hey, I want to write a message about starting my agency, for example. How do I do an announcement post? And my I'm not very good at like writing because I have an academic background. I just write very factually. And I've tried for years to get out of it, but like writing that I'm proud in a post doesn't come naturally. What my first draft was, hey, I've started an agency. So I was like, hey, chat GPT. And like it came up with some ideas and then I just sort of worked from there and made it my own. So, using it as a starting point for somebody like me who's writing it, it's not my profession. I can advise on what best to do for a search engine in terms of writing content, like structure and things like that. But in terms of writing, like it's not my forte. I actually really appreciate anybody who can write. I think it's an incredible craft, like well done. But for me it's super useful because I'm so used to writing in such a different way, and I've been trained to write in a different way. And writing now for something completely different just hasn't come naturally. So I do find it very useful for that. I do think that it does need to go a bit further. I don't know if you saw recently there was a few tweets about it. I can't remember the company that did it, but you can talk to a historical figure like Henry Ford, and they will reply to you. And there have been some pretty
Wow.
shocking replies from their AI pretending to be Henry Ford. It says that it's an
Mm,
AI, like talk to me as if I'm Henry Ford, but I am an AI.
mhm.
And the person asked about Henry Ford's very famous anti-Semitism. And this AI was saying, "Oh, I've been misunderstood in the past, and I didn't really mean it. I obviously am very regretful." And he was a famous anti-Semitism. Like I don't think you can put words in his mouth now about being regretful. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And I saw exactly
Mm,
the same response from somebody who had spoken to a Nazi leader. So I think that it can be very problematic.
mhm.
So I think it has its use cases. It also doesn't have its use cases, and I think that we need to be quite careful in when to use it and when not to use it. Um, I saw a post from a content writer who I follow on LinkedIn, Rachel Nicholson. She's
Mhm.
just a fantastic writer. I'll read everything she writes because she's so good at it. And she said, "I'm actually really looking forward to Chat GPT. I'm really looking forward to all the editing jobs that I get from it." So I thought that was quite
Yeah.
funny. Um, but I mean, improvement of it is inevitable, and I think we just need to figure out how we use it in our day-to-day lives. Will it take jobs? Will it supplement jobs or augment the jobs that you're currently working on? I think that that still remains to be seen in how fast and how much it does improve. But I think it's an incredible tool, and I think we'll just have to see how Google treats the content that I think is being written quite a lot at the moment and put live. Can't remember the name of the company. I think Mark, is it Mark Williamson? I just saw you put out at
Williams
the
Cook.
last episode.
Yeah.
Williams Cook, that's it. How did I get that wrong? And he was saying how, you know, it is a matter of time, and there's this company that's put out some posts. I think it was like 75 as a test. Can't remember the name of the company, but we'll see how Google treats that content and how it makes use of AI itself. I think it's quite an interesting time because we've got this amazing new technology that can be so useful, so problematic, and I think people how are we going to use this? Like, what are all of the applications? Because it's seemingly endless. Like, it's an incredible tool. I think we're just going to have to wait and see. In some cases, like, you can only imagine a part of what people are going to come up with and how they're going to use it. But I think it's a very exciting and interesting time. I think it's going to be both good and awful. So we'll see. But I'm excited.